Welcome to the world today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. What we have on the program today, Trump finally responding to Russia's latest attacks on Ukraine, calling President Putin absolutely crazy. The MSF saying babies in Gaza are being eaten by rodents, and the Nigerian community in South Africa demanding answers for missing national. Let's begin the program. U.S. President Donald Trump says Vladimir Putin has gone absolutely crazy after the Russian leader launched the largest aerial attack on Moscow's 3-year full-scale war on Ukraine. He posted on Truth Social, "I've always had a very good relationship with Vladimir Putin of Russia, but something has happened to him. He's gone absolutely crazy. He is needlessly killing a lot of people. And I'm not just talking about soldiers. Missiles and drones are being shot into cities in Ukraine for no reason whatsoever." Hours earlier, Trump had told reporters, "I'm not happy with what Putin is doing. He's killing a lot of people and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin." Moscow had launched overnight attacks on Friday, Saturday and Sunday in Ukraine, killing at least 29 people over 3 days and injuring dozens more, according to officials. The bombardment from Saturday into Sunday saw more drones and missiles launched at Ukraine than in any other single assault in 3 years. Trump's intervention coming at a crucial moment in Moscow's war will be viewed with relief in the West as a signal that the White House has grown frustrated with Putin's refusal to accept a proposed 30-day ceasefire in the conflict. But Russia has brushed off President Donald Trump's description of the Russian President Vladimir Putin as crazy, as it escalated aerial attacks that have hit Ukraine with more than 1,000 drone and missile strikes in 3 days. When asked about Trump's sharp condemnation of attacks that killed at least a dozen civilians, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Putin was grateful to the U.S. president for helping organize direct talks with Kyiv, but sought to justify the assaults as necessary for Russia's security. Asked about Donald Trump's comments on Sunday, in which he said he was unhappy with President Putin, Mr. Peskov said that Putin makes decisions that are necessary to ensure Russia's security. He said Russia has hit Ukrainian facilities in retaliation to the Ukrainian strikes. In his words, "We've seen Ukrainians striking our social infrastructure. This is a retaliatory strike, a strike on military facilities." Peskov said Russia has not given Ukraine its draft memorandum of peace settlement, saying that it is a serious document and needs to be thoroughly weighed and worked out. In the meantime, some journalists have had the opportunity of visiting Mariupol in Ukraine. They, as well as video bloggers and other public figures from across Europe and the Middle East, were in the city to witness the impact of the conflict firsthand and view the city's ongoing reconstruction process. Representatives are recording reports against the backdrop of Azovstal meteorological plant, which was destroyed in the fighting, as well as homes damaged by shelling and local theater under construction. Some of the respondents to the visits were Serbian television presenter Milos Konstantinovic, who said he wanted to see the area with his own eyes without any input or influence from intermediaries. He expressed hope that positive change would come for both nations. Meanwhile, French publicist and political activist Alain Soral praised Russia's efforts, in particular in rebuilding the city.
You know that we all want to know the truth. Some Western propaganda tell us in Serbia that Russia is first priority attacker to our world, if you understand me. I want to see the truth. I want to see this building, to talk with people, to ask some questions. Why? And what is their opinion about conflict between Ukraine and Russia? Look that now. Devastated. Oh, everything is not normal. Everything is with bulletproofs, with bullets on the building. They attack with rockets, with drones, with guns, with everything. It's not normal, man. We are all human. Russia and Ukraine are the same people, same faith, same religion, everything the same. I wanna support the Russian nation, the Russian people, the Ukrainian people. They are good people. I'm so sorry for this. I hope so. In the future, it will be better for all of us. We are the same nation, same people.
On Sunday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urged America's silence after Russia's recent attacks is encouraging President Vladimir Putin. At least 12 people were killed in overnight attacks by Russia after it launched the highest number of drones and missiles in a single night since the war began. He warned that Russia's brutality cannot be stopped without strong pressure on the Russian leadership. The attacks by Russia, said to be the largest in recent times, occurred on the third day of a planned prisoner swap between Russia and Ukraine, the only tangible outcome from peace talks in Istanbul earlier this month, which has so far failed to produce a ceasefire. There were several drone strikes from Russia. This footage shows emergency responders trying to extinguish fires in Odessa as smoke billowed from cars and houses that were damaged in the attack. Ukraine's Air Force said it shot down 45 cruise missiles and destroyed 266 UAVs, with most regions in Ukraine affected and hits recorded in 22 locations. Of the people killed, 3 in Zhytomyr region were children, all of them siblings. Despite mounting international calls, Russia has continued to intensify its aerial campaign, showing no sign of halting its offensive and ignoring calls for a ceasefire. In a pointed message to the U.S. president, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the world may go on vacation, but the war continues, despite weekends and weekdays. This cannot be ignored. America's silence and the silence of others in the world only encourages Putin. As for the prison exchange, over 300 Ukrainian soldiers returned home on Sunday. It was the third and last part of a major exchange that reflected a rare moment of cooperation in otherwise failed efforts to reach a ceasefire in the more than 3 years of conflict. Well, the European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas has admitted that the bloc cannot fill the void left by the Trump administration's cuts to foreign aid. She was speaking ahead of an EU Foreign Affairs Council meeting in Brussels. The EU minister later denounced Russia's intensified bombardment on Ukraine, calling on the international community to ramp up pressure on Moscow.
We are having a Foreign Affairs Council on Development today, so this is my first time to chair the development ministers. We are going to discuss the impacts of U.S. aid withdrawal from the development aid and where we can come in. Of course, we have strategic priorities. We can't fill the void that U.S. is leaving behind totally, but we are focusing on the priorities that we have, and we will discuss about this. Of course, it will be our neighborhood. It will be also democracy, media freedom. It will be also priorities like human rights and democracy. Then we are going to discuss the African ministerial that we had, and also the preparation for the EU-Africa summit, that we would have concrete deliverables. I'm happy to say that we had very successful successful ministerial, very many ministers present from Africa, 39 in total, and 15 ministers from Europe. There were a lot of exchange of views, and I think definitely need to build on that cooperation. Then we are going to discuss also the next MFF and what it means for external action, and how we can do it better so that it is so more really modernized and more cost effective, because the funds are always limited. And of course, in the end, we will also have, under any other business, Ukraine. These attacks on Kiev are totally appalling. It is clear that Russia has increased its pressure on Ukraine. It is really bombing Ukraine, and we have seen the deadliest attacks. So it is up to us to put the pressure on Russia so that it would also want peace. We are ready to do it on the European side, and we are hoping that other international partners will follow suit. Thank you.
The European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas admitting the bloc cannot fill the void left by the Trump administration. In the meantime, more denials from the Kremlin, which has rejected claims of potential Russian involvement in alleged arson attacks at properties connected to Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, calling them ludicrous. It comes after media reports that the UK security officials are investigating a potential link following 3 incidents earlier this month. In response, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said London tends to suspect Russia of involvement in all the bad things happening in Great Britain. 3 men, 2 Ukrainian nationals and a Romanian man, have been charged as part of a police investigation into the attacks. We're returning now to our lead story on the program. U.S. President Donald Trump calling the Russian president absolutely crazy. His comments coming after the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had criticized America's silence over Russia's recent attacks. Our correspondent in Washington, Maria Bird, joins me now. Maria, great to see you. And just wondering, why it is that the U.S. president delayed his response to those attacks that happened in Ukraine over the weekend. There were 3 nights of bombardments of several Ukrainian cities. And the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is right. America was silent, while all of this was going on. What does America think of this? I mean, what are analysts on the ground, saying about how the president has responded to these attacks?
Well, we know that the president is definitely being under watch for this. We know the president has been very outspoken as it relates to the Russia-Ukraine war. He has continued the involvement that the U.S. has had as a leader in trying to continue with peace talks. We know that there has been obviously now constrained relationships as a result of him mentioning on his platform, Truth platform, that Putin has gone absolutely crazy after the massive Russian attack on Ukraine. We also know that the president has been very clear to state that he was hopeful that the war could end very soon. And he was a big concern about the launching of the largest aerial attack on Ukraine this past Sunday. And this is, being criticized and attributed to emotional overload of everyone. And so the president obviously has also stated before that he does not have a problem with backing out if the war could not come to an end very soon. So this is something I think that obviously Ukrainian President Zelensky is very hopeful that the president will take further action. He's asking for the president to get further involved. The U.S. has been very clear through both administrations that they were not looking to have actual armed forces on the ground, U.S. troops on the ground, but they would be supporting financially and also with weaponry. So I think this is putting the president in a pretty tough predicament as we're seeing an increase in the violence with the war.
But it also puts the Ukrainian president in a pretty difficult position because, with Trump's every comment that the U.S. president makes, it does appear that Ukraine is pressed harder to the wall by the Russian attacks. And then you have a U.S. president who says is almost willing to pull out of this deal that he is trying to broker between Russia and Ukraine. That does still put Ukraine in a more difficult position of trying to defend itself, both physically as well as, in front of the rest of the world.
And that's exactly what many Americans are a bit concerned about, the U.S.'s involvement from obviously talks, but they are not actually actively involved on the ground. And so when you think of, to your point, and what you're basically alluding to is the fact that if the president has those type of very strong remarks, it then creates further damage for Ukraine. And if the focal point is the loss of lives, and I think that's what most Americans are hoping can be addressed and where they want America to stand clear on, is an end to the war, because it's the loss of lives was just too great. And so that is one of the things that I think the president is going to have to find a way, if he continues the U.S.'s involvement in the war as it has been, to bring both sides together. And that is, I think, the area that has not happened as of yet, bringing both sides together. Over the past couple of weeks, there have been conversations about bringing both sides together, but that has not yet occurred. And we're still seeing, and as we mentioned earlier, one of the largest attacks has recently occurred just the other night.
Has President Trump responded to Russia's comments, about his own comments, saying that Vladimir Putin is crazy because of the escalated attacks on Ukraine? The government spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, did allude to that, saying that Trump's description of Vladimir Putin as crazy, well, he brushed off those comments, not exactly. He said the condemnation, of course, has no impact on the Russian president. Has President Trump responded to this?
Well, we are on the Memorial Day holiday, and so there has been limited further comments from the president. But we can expect that he is trying to, or his team is working to come up with a exact response. What we know at this time is, as you mentioned, President Putin has provided some comments there, reacted to the U.S. president. And so we're expecting the president will come out with something. And I think this is because obviously the whole world is watching. We've seen the EU reject the Russians' bid for talks over carbon border tax. We've seen other countries, the Finland PM urges pressure. And so this is obviously a time where the whole world is watching and looking to the U.S. to provide some sort of a explanation in response to this, because the hope is that the continued escalation does not occur. But we can also expect that the Secretary of State will be actively involved in these discussions, and potentially we could see some further news come out on Tuesday as it relates to the U.S.'s stance and how they will be responding.
Perhaps the Secretary of State could also respond to why the U.S. is not imploring on Russia to agree to ceasefire with Ukraine.
Yes, and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is going to be very clear on why the U.S. We know that the U.S. and Russia in the previous Trump administration had a very close relationship. So this is obviously very new territory for the Trump administration to be at this point with the Russian administration. And so I think that where they're trying to move forward to is understanding how to move the needle. But you actually have two world leaders that are very used to aggressive measures as it relates to moving force and moving their agenda forward. And so when you look at what President Trump is used to as he works as president and administers his actions, and to see that President Putin is not responding in the manner in which he is accustomed to world leaders responding to him. So this is going to be going to require a lot of strategy for the Trump administration to be able to address it moving forward, because as it's been very clear, that this war is impacting globally. And we know the most recent agreement between the U.S. and Ukraine around resources and minerals is going to be very key to the Trump administration.
Thanks again, Maria. American businesses have been trying to adjust to new economic realities under the second administration of President Donald Trump. The U.S. president enacted a series of steep protective tariffs affecting nearly all goods imported into the United States. Now, between January and April of this year, the average effective U.S. tariff rate rose from 2.5% to an estimated 27%, the highest level in over a century. As of May, the average effective tariff rate is 17.8%. We'll talk more about this later. But the federal government of the United States has pursued an economic policy focused on lower taxation, deregulation, and large-scale protective tariffs. Trump nominated Howard Lutnick as the United States Secretary of Commerce, Scott Bessent as the United States Secretary of Treasury, and Russell Vought as the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, all of whom were confirmed by the U.S. Senate. And when Trump took office as president in January, the economy of the U.S. had increasing economic growth, low unemployment, and declining inflation in the aftermath of the 2021 to 2023 inflation surge. To cut the United States federal budget, Trump established the Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk. Doge employees have vastly cut spending at various federal agencies and have attempted to dismantle nearly all of the functions of the United States Agency for International Development and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Though Musk set the initial goal of $2 trillion in savings for Doge, he later revised it to $150 billion. By April of this year, he said Doge had saved over $160 billion, though the cost of the mass layoffs of government employees and other methods offset much of its savings. In January of 2025, the OMB briefly issued a pause to all grants and loans from the federal government. Much of Trump's domestic economic agenda has centered around the extension of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, which was passed through his first presidential term. Trump has also pledged to remove taxes on tips, overtime pay, and Social Security benefits, though all of his proposals face resistance from Congress, which the tax cuts likely to increase in the U.S. National debt by trillions of dollars, if not offset by political cuts to spending. Trump also imposed steep protectionist tariffs against nearly every country in an effort to correct U.S. trade deficits and promote manufacturing in the U.S., significantly escalating the China-U.S. trade war and beginning a trade war with Canada and Mexico. The reaction to Trump's tariffs, including his April 2025 decision to impose a universal 10% tariff for nearly all countries and higher rates on many other countries, led to a stock market crash. We'll be discussing this in a few minutes, but the head of an organization set up to distribute aid in Gaza as part of a controversial Israel-backed plan has resigned, saying it could not work in a way that adhered to humanitarian principles. Jake Wood quit the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation late on Sunday, saying it would not be able to fulfill the principles of humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence. The plan, also backed by the U.S., envisions private contractors delivering aid to Palestinians via Israel-designated distribution sites. It was heavily criticized by the United Nations, which says it will not participate. Israel insists the plan is needed to stop Hamas stealing aid, which the armed group denies doing under the GHF plan. Palestinians would be expected to collect boxes weighing up to 20 kilograms containing food and basic hygiene from 4 distribution points in southern Gaza. It's unclear how the weak or injured will be able to collect the aid, but Chief Tom Fletcher of the UNAID says it would force further displacement, restrict aid to only one part of Gaza, and make starvation a bargaining chip. Meanwhile, Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Álvarez has called for sanctions and the immediate suspension of the European Union's association agreement with Israel, warning that if action must be taken, Tel Aviv does not end action must be taken, beg your pardon, if Tel Aviv does not end operations in Gaza. Making the call on Sunday as the Madrid group convened in the Spanish capital to discuss the implementation of a two-state solution, Alvarez said Gaza is an open wound in humanity, an open wound in which every day we see new innocent civilian victims. Last week, EU Chief Kaja Kallas revealed the bloc's agreement with Tel Aviv was under review amid Israel's ground offensive in the enclave. The foreign minister called on all governments supporting a two-state solution to get moving, urging them to impose an arms embargo on Tel Aviv as the humanitarian crisis in Gaza worsens.
Palestine is very, very sad, and we would like to see this stop as soon as possible. We hope that the Israeli government would listen to our demands for bringing in food, to stop famine, stop genocide. Many countries around the world see what's happening and they clearly disapprove it. Obviously, disapproving is not doing it, so more pressure is being considered, and I think this is only appropriate given what our people are going through, which is not acceptable for anybody who respects international law and international humanitarian law. So we hope that additional pressures will be put on Israel to end the war, open the borders, but also end the occupation and move.
Well, U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem was in Israel today on a visit meant to show solidarity with the country after the fatal shooting in Washington last week of 2 Israeli embassy employees. According to court papers, Noem said that President Donald Trump had asked her to come to Israel after the shootings of Sarah Milgrim, an American citizen, and Yaron Lishinsky, an Israeli. A suspect identified as Elias Rodriguez said he did it for Palestine. At a news conference with Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar, Noem said Trump stands with Israel as they fight this hatred in the world.
I want to thank Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem for her important visit to Israel. This visit, after the horrific murder of Yaron Lishinsky and Sarah Lynn Milgrim in Washington, shows solidarity and demonstrates the close relations between our people. Our hearts break for this loss of young, promising lives. I want to thank you personally, Secretary Noem, and all the branches of the administration involved for the intensive investigation underway. Secretary, I also thank you for your long-standing support for Israel. President Trump and his administration show great commitment to fighting terrorism and anti-Semitism. I believe your visit here is part of it. We truly appreciate that.
Following the horrific terrorist attacks in Washington, D.C. that took the lives of Sarah Milgrim and Yaron Lishinsky, President Trump asked me to come here to Israel, to stand with all of you and to honor Sarah and Yaron. Today we stand together with profound grief, and our hearts are heavy with the loss of these 2 radiant souls that we will no longer have with us. Their lives were so full of promise and love and dedication, and may they be an inspiration to us of how to live our daily lives as well. They were people who recognized they were created to serve others, and they did that in a way to take straight on the face of other people that seek to divide us and that hate us. Yet in this moment of sorrow, we also ask that you would gather with us to honor their light and the unbreakable spirit of the Israeli and the American people. Yaron was known for his infectious smile and his unwavering commitment to peace and the vision of the Abraham Accords. But he believed in peace and goodness.
Their lives were taken from them last week. Their lives should have been celebrated this week as they were going to become engaged here in Israel and plan for a life together. Instead, because of an act of hateful terrorism, their lives were taken from them. But their memories will not be taken from any of us, and we should always be mindful that there are people who pay an incredible price to simply be Israelis and Jews.
Well, back in Gaza, medical charity Médecins Sans Frontières has said the conditions are so dire that babies returning from hospital are being eaten by rodents. The group's emergency coordinator, Pascal Croissard, is based in Khan Younis. She was making the revelation to British channel Sky News on Monday. Croissard said she last visited in 2023, and even though she described it as hell on earth, it does not compare to the current situation.
Most of our facilities are full of injured people. Yesterday I was touring the Nasser hospital, and it's not only the ICU, the intensive care unit, and the burns unit that are full of injured. It's also the extension of tents, which are usually used for light cases that are now full with injured. I was in the pediatric ward, and we have a pediatric intensive care unit there, and almost all of the cases were injured children. Some of them were disfigured, some others had burns, there were several brain injuries. This is what it looks like. The only place where there were no injured was the neonatology intensive care unit for premature babies. But as I was touring the neonatology intensive care unit, I came across the case of a child who's a premature and who was in isolation. Because of the living conditions, actually. He came back to his tent with his mother, where he should be living now, and got bitten by a rat. So this is how people are living now. They can't even protect themselves from rats. Well, in our case, we were able to enter 4 trucks into Gaza, 4 trucks of medicines and medical material, which is obviously not enough. So now we are running to supply new trucks and try to be able to have these trucks as soon as possible into Gaza. We have a lot of trucks waiting, but they're coming from other places. So there are I believe more than 900 trucks overall, not only MSF, Doctors Without Borders trucks waiting. But because of some restrictions by the Israeli authorities, there are just a certain amount and certain specific trucks that can enter.
Groups of young Israeli Jews have made their way through Muslim neighborhoods in Jerusalem's Old City today ahead of an annual march marking Israel's conquest of the eastern part of the city. Palestinian shopkeepers had early closed today. Police also lined the narrow alleys ahead of the march that often becomes a rowdy and sometimes violent procession of ultra-nationalist Jews. A policeman raised his arms in celebration as demonstrators marched through the streets, recognizing a friend among the procession and stopping for a hug. Volunteers from the pro-peace organization Standing Together and Free Jerusalem argued with protesters as they attempted to storm into Palestinian homes. Ahead of the procession today, Israeli far-right Nationalist Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir visited a flashpoint in Jerusalem, holy site. That visit came ahead of the march today. The procession commemorating Jerusalem Day, marking Israel's capture of East Jerusalem, including the Old City and its holy sites sacred to Jews, Christians and Muslims in the 1967 Mid-East War, that was set for later in the day. Well, since 1967, a tenuous status quo has allowed Jews to revere the site as the Temple Mount, the location of ancient temples, to visit but not to pray there. Meanwhile, Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says he's outraged by Israel's withholding of aid to the people of Gaza. Speaking to reporters earlier today, he said Israel's actions are completely unacceptable. Israel blocked all food, medicine and fuel from entering Gaza for 2.5 months before letting a trickle of aid enter last week after experts warned of famine. The UN, on the other hand, says it's not seen evidence supporting Israel's claim that Hamas is responsible for looting of aid trucks.
Acceptable. It is outrageous that there be a blockade of food and supplies to people who are in need in Gaza. We've made that very clear by signing up to international statements. I made it clear in a discussion that I had with the President of Israel, President Herzog, in Rome just days ago. I made it very clear that Australia finds these actions as completely unacceptable, and we find Israel's excuses and explanations completely untenable and without credibility. People are starving, and the idea that a democratic state withholds supply is an outrage. Now, that is my clear position. It's one I've indicated clearly and directly to the Israeli government. It's one that will continue to be a part of international statements as we were last week. Hamas, a terrorist organisation who should have no role in the future of Gaza or the West Bank. We make that very clear. We make clear that hostages should be released immediately. We've consistently and unequivocally opposed what happened on October 7. But states which are democratic states have a responsibility to behave in a way that is consistent with international law and with humanitarian concerns, and the whole world is concerned about what has occurred with the blockade, and Australia will continue to make clear statements on that.
The Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Back to the US President Donald Trump, who, when he took office in January of 2025, made the economy his focus. The economy of the United States had increasing economic growth, low unemployment, declining inflation in the aftermath of the 2021 to 2023 inflation surge. To cut the United States federal budget, Trump established the Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk. Employees vastly cut spending at various federal agencies, say they've attempted to dismantle nearly all of the functions of the United States Agency for International Development and Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Much of Trump's domestic economic agenda has centered around the extension of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, which was passed during his first presidential term. His pledge to remove taxes on tips, overtime pay and social security benefits, though all of his proposals face resistance from Congress, which the tax cuts likely to increase by the United States. A reaction to Trump's tariffs in the later part of his 6 months in office include his April 2025 decision to impose a universal 10% tariff on nearly all countries and higher rates on many other countries, leading to a stock market crash that we saw just a few weeks ago. Well, the tax cuts and impact of Trump's policies on building materials and the housing markets in general is our focus today. And I want to bring in real estate agent Easy Okwodi, who joins us from Washington, D.C. Easy, thank you for joining us on the program, and a happy Memorial Day to you.
Thank you very much. Happy Memorial Day.
And you've been in business for a while now, at least as an estate agent, and you've been helping people find homes in the U.S. And I believe the first time we spoke about this, you said your motto was to put a certain number of Americans into their own homes. What's the status now?
There's 1 million families in 1 million homes. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm pushing and I'm fighting every day to do it, to make it happen.
Are you still working, with the same indices, as you strive to achieve this goal before this administration, or have you had to make adjustments under the new Trump administration?
I've had to make a lot of different adjustments with different clients because of the price of homes now. I've been focusing with my clients on buying already renovated homes. I've been doing flips, things like that. Brand new homes are not really, people are not buying brand new homes as much as they used to. So I've been focusing mainly on flips. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term, but flips is when you get an older home, you renovate it and you sell it. And you can buy it at a more affordable price than buying a brand new home. So a brand new home will be more expensive because of the tariffs. So now a lot of my clients are focused towards purchasing renovated homes.
Yeah, and the job cuts in America must have also impacted on many people's incomes, and I'm sure that that's affecting how they buy homes and also how they're doing with the mortgage payments.
It affected some. It didn't affect everybody, but it definitely affected some people. But for the people are still buying every day, and the advice I give them is maybe not cut your coat according to your size. Maybe don't buy that really, really expensive home. For some of my clients, I'm having them purchase with family members. So you see situations where different family members are coming together to purchase a home, like 2 different brothers or 3 brothers or a sister, and one family member stays in the top part of the home and the other family member stays in the bottom part of the home. So, we're just using different strategies and doing a lot of different loan modifications. So me and my loan officers, we're working on different ways to make it happen so we can still help you purchase a home.
Have there been other impacts to your business, the economic policies implemented by this administration?
What are the impacts? The main thing is fear. A lot of people are scared. A lot of people I talk to, their first thing is like, I'm not sure if I want to purchase a home right now because I'm not sure if I'm going to have my job. You keep seeing this different people getting laid off on the news. So that's impacted a lot. So what I try and do is I try and educate the clients. So I host home buying seminars once a month where I educate people about home ownership, the different strategies they could use, the different opportunities that the government has that they could use to purchase their homes. So fear is the main thing I've noticed, that everybody's scared now. But not everybody, a lot of people are scared now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine. I know that you're not importing or exporting building materials, but you may not be directly affected by this, but how many new homes have sprung up in the last few months?
It's slowed down. I'm going to be honest, it's slowed down. Buyers are focused mainly on renovated homes. Buyers are focused mainly on flips. So the amount of brand new homes that's reduced in the DMV compared to, how it used to be a year ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah. Well, they take things easy, although here in Nigeria would say eze, but do take things easy.
Yeah.
Thanks again for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
King Charles and Queen Camilla are making good their promise to visit Canada this week, a move seen as bringing a message of support for the country in the face of threats and taunts from U.S. President Donald Trump. They're coming to Canada on the invitation of Prime Minister Mark Carney. King Charles is expected to read the speech from the throne to the Canadian Parliament tomorrow, the first time a monarch will be doing so in 50 years. The King's visit will include a visit to a defense of Canada's sovereignty and to reject claims it should be taken over by the United States. The Nigerian community in South Africa is demanding answers over a missing national after allegations of abduction and torture rocked Spring City in Johannesburg. While a search is still underway for the missing Nigerian, identified as Silas Annie, it's alleged it was taken by television personality Zolani Khumalo alongside Moja Love TV crew members and accompanied by South African police in Springs during what was reported as an anti-drug operation. According to reports, Annie and 2 other Nigerian nationals were taken to a secret location where they were allegedly tortured, while the 2 others were later returned. Annie has not been seen since then. It's Africa Day this week. Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs has joined the African Union member states and the entire African continent in celebrating the 62nd anniversary of the founding of the African Union, before otherwise known as the Organization of African Unity. A statement released by the ministry says justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations resonates deeply with Nigeria's commitment to fostering continental unity, sustainable development, and collective prosperity. Africa Day serves as a powerful reminder of our shared heritage, struggles, and aspirations for a peaceful, integrated, and economically vibrant Africa.
At the Freedom Park in Pretoria, crowds gathered to celebrate Africa Day at a vibrant event hosted by South Africa's Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. The event showcases performers in traditional attire, beating drums and dancing. As dignitaries including Brazilian ambassador to South Africa, Benedicto Fonseca, joined the festivities.
I take part in this celebration with joy and respect, recognizing the historical, cultural, and human ties that unite us with the African continent. Brazil has deep African roots. We are considered the 2nd country in the world with the largest black population after Nigeria. It is estimated that more than half of Brazil's population has African ancestry, which makes African heritage an essential part of Brazil's national identity. Africa is a priority for Brazilian foreign policy under President Lula's administration.
You know, just to be cliché, the drum that you heard today, it is one thing, it is one gift that only Africa can give the world. We drum today to silence the guns. It is the art of the drum, it is the message that the drum gives, and Africa has given them today the drums so that the guns can be silenced.
What Mr. Trump has done sanctioning some of these African countries, I feel like it's high time our African presidents also just decide to take a stand and all of them should turn their backs on him. Because I feel like if that was to happen, then Trump would actually feel the wrath of Africa.
As we end the program today, hundreds of locals were delighted to catch the breathtaking performance featuring 2,000 drones that illuminated, there we are. They illuminated Seoul's night sky at Tuskom Hakang Park on Sunday. Take a look at those drones forming captivating images in the sky, including a rose, bouquet, angel wings, and the word soul. Some of the spectators said it would be nice if they could see this on regular weekdays and not just on Sundays or even special occasions. The Fly with Soul, Shine in Seoul drone show is held in Hakang Park every Sunday from April 27th. It will continue until June 15th. That's the world today, as I see it and as you see it. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani.